the honor of being your facilitator for this session. My name is Ellen Zwarnstein. I'm the Executive Director at the Michigan Center for Civic Education that oversees the We the People program for that particular state. The judges are here. They'll introduce themselves. They will ask you to introduce yourselves, and then we will begin with the hearing questions. And at appropriate times, we hope to see some time cards put up here as well.
So good afternoon. My name is Barry Anderson. I'll be chairing the panel this afternoon. I'm an associate justice on the Minnesota Supreme Court. I'm the senior justice on the court. That just means I've hung around for a long time. I've been associated with the program for many years. I also had the privilege of serving as an assistant coach many years ago, so I have some appreciation for all the work you've put in. We're looking forward to a great conversation today. And with that thought, I'll turn the floor over to Professor Chambers.
Hello, folks. I'm Hank Chambers, law professor down here at the University of Richmond. Good to see you all. Been at this for, doing We the People stuff for 20, 25 years. So seen a lot, but I'm sure we were going to have a very good conversation this afternoon. So good to see y'all.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ann Zinkin. I am a career law clerk at the New Hampshire Supreme Court. Been doing that for about 21 years. Prior to that, I litigated employment cases in San Francisco. I've been associated with the We the People program for somewhere between 5 and 10 years, although this is the first time I've been at finals, and I'm very much looking forward to our conversation.
So if you'd be so kind as to introduce yourselves and your coach.
Hi, my name is Owen Toller.
I'm Heath Watson, Manager Bratton.
And I'm Hannah Osadi.
And our coach or teacher is Tom O'Hare.
Very good. Thanks to all the work that he's done and that you've all done in preparing today. We are going to be discussing Unit 4, question number 2. I'll read the question, and after I finish reading the question, you are free to give us your statement, and after that, we'll have a chance to have a conversation about it. So, Unit 4, Question 2. Members of Congress are not only legislators, but they are also inquisitorial and should meet frequently to inspect the conduct of the public officers. How effectively do you believe Congress has used its investigative power? Explain the differences, if any, between the power of Congress to investigate and the power of oversight. Which power, in your opinion, is the more significant? How effectively do you believe Congress has used its oversight powers? You may begin.
Even though Congress is elected primarily to make laws, they also have many other powers in order to make sure America is running smoothly. One of these main powers is the investigatory powers, which allows them to gain information in order to ensure that things are happening correctly and that crisis does not occur again. I believe that Congress has used the power effectively, but like anything in the US government, there could be improvement. Many times this power is used in times of crisis. The biggest crisis this country faced was a terrorist attack from 9/11. Congress called for a 9/11 commission to be created, not only to figure out what happened, but also to plan the next steps to prevent a tragedy from happening again. Another major event that sparked a commission from Congress was the Warren Commission. This commission was set to investigate the assassination of President Kennedy. These commissions have very important findings about topics or crises that inform Congress exactly what happened and how to act from what happened.
With a more informed body, Congress can create legislation that impacts the country better than if they were not informed. There are probably countless acts of meaningful legislation that would not have been passed without investigation. Without the 9/11 findings, we may not have a Department of Homeland Security to make sure that our country is well protected from foreign and internal attacks. After Kennedy was shot, there were many steps taken to ensure the safety of current and former presidents. Investigation is a key role of Congress to ensure that it knows all of the vital information that it needs. In fact, many people in Congress do not have time to have personal searches about topics and rely on investigations from different committees in order to form opinions on legislation.
In regards to the second question, oversight and the power to investigate fall under the same congressional category of the power to investigate. Oversight is looking into federal agencies and executive departments, and is probably the power that is covered in the media the most. Because the bureaucracy has become a bigger and bigger threat of becoming its own independent body, having someone look over it and oversee it is important. Congress also sets the budgets for these agencies, so having them almost in control of them is an overlooked but important check that Congress holds. The power to investigate is more for legislative purposes in order to gain more information about a certain topic, and is usually left to committees that are in charge of the piece of that legislation. It is difficult to say that one is more important than the other. To me, in times of crisis, oversight is definitely more powerful because Congress can take actions on the wrongdoings of the executive branch and its duties. With that being said, in order for Congress to make meaningful decisions that will actually affect their constituents, they need the power to investigate to make the most informed decision possible. If I had to choose a more significant one, it would be oversight, just because it acts as a check over the executive branch. When an administration becomes corrupt, Congress can expose that corruption and take action to make sure they get back on track. Overall, both powers are very necessary in order to keep our country safe and keep it going.
In order to make sure the government is doing its job, Congress has the power to oversight. This power was made very clear to be important in Federalist 51, which highlighted the checks and balances of government, and that ambition needs to counter ambition. This is Congress's way of ensuring that the executive branch and the bureaucracy is performing its job and not overstepping. They look into federal and executive agencies to make sure nothing bad is going on. Honestly, Congress probably has not used its power as effectively as possible, nor do they need to. As long as the specific agency is not drastically overstepping their boundaries, Congress should probably focus on lawmaking. If every time Congress heard of something wrong, they stopped and used oversight, legislation would have to be halted many times, reducing the efficiency of Congress to do what they were elected to do. Personally, I think Congress should only use oversight if they truly believe it is more pressing to look into that issue than to pass legislation. This isn't to say that oversight is not important, it just does not need to be used as much as it possibly can. Rendering is less effective than it really could be. This power is becoming.
Time. So let me ask you about the investigative power of Congress. And let me ask you if you think it has been wisely used, and do you think there are ways for it to be more effectively used? And if so, in what ways could that power be reformed?
I think in times of like very important things where like a president is assassinated or like the 9/11 attacks or January 6th, the riots, I think it has been used effectively because like not everyone in Congress is very, I'm not going to say like not aware, but they don't know everything that goes into what happened. And so those specific committees can investigate that and then tell Congress what needs to be taken or what laws should be implemented in order to make sure our country is safe and that nothing like that happens again.
Yeah, going off that, I think it's very important to have a specific committee investigating whatever the incident may be, whatever the problem may be, and finding effective solutions to tell Congress and have Congress enact legislation to solve problems and keep us safe.
Is there a difference between having a committee look at an issue and having a commission looking at an issue versus having a congressional committee look at an issue?
I think commission, all of Congress calls it. I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure that all of Congress would call it. And a committee is already set up before that. So I'm sure there is a.
Yes. So if a commission has folks on it who are not congressmen and congresswomen, is a little different than a committee that's fully Congress versus a commission that's really quite different?
I'm sorry. I feel as if a committee would be a little less efficient. Again, I feel as if Congress needs to step up and make the legislation. Meanwhile, I feel as if a commission is more effective as we have specific people that were designed to do this job and investigate, such as police officers or detectives. I feel as if, like we stated in our paper, that pretty much Congress is made to make laws, in my opinion. So in my personal opinion, Congress should make laws and mind their own business.
I kind of disagree with that. I think that a commission would actually be more effective because I think that the people in Congress should like focus on the problems that they have in Congress, what they have to deal with, legislation being enacted, and just have a specific committee or commission actually study the evidence and come up with a conclusion, then to give that information to Congress and then let them enact that legislation.
Okay.
Can you give me any examples of when you think Congress has misused its investigatory power?
You know, I feel as if, as a Muslim, I know the terrorist attacks of 9/11. I feel as if the laws that they have enacted, specifically the TSA, it really hits home for me because I will be stopped randomly with my father at the airport for a specific check. I feel as if when Congress used those I can't say the word, investigating powers, I feel like they really overstepped it a little. I understand the purpose of the TSA, but at the same time, I feel like there could have been a little less emphasis on really extracting the Muslims and pretty much, I mean, not shaming us for what we did, but I feel like even though there was not any legislation passed against us, there is a certain type of stigma around the TSA with Muslims.
Yeah, and I also want to add, I don't know if this is Congress actually overstepping their boundaries because they are somewhat allowed to do this, but there was a lot of controversy in the Watergate scandal as to whether they were allowed to ask for the tapes or not. So that was another example. Some people think that that was Congress overstepping their boundaries by wanting a personal tape as they asked for.
So what are the limits on congressional investigatory power? It sounds like one limit might be separation of powers. Are there other limits?
Well, it's very hard to decipher that. I feel as if, you know, just based on the bureaucracy is growing stronger and stronger. So I feel as if we as a country have not really decided to place limits, well, very solid limits on anything. So I feel like that question is a little invalid right now.
You think the founders, were they to fast forward 225 years or thereabouts, now more than that, I guess, 240 years maybe. If the founders were to look at where we are today in terms of congressional oversight and congressional investigations, do you think they would be approving of the level of investigation and oversight, or disapproving, or would see some other way in which it should be done?
I would say disapproving because I feel like they kind of created Congress as legislation only. And so I think a lot of things in the government they would disapprove of, but I think with the way things are now, it's important to have investigation, but I do think that they would disapprove of it because of what they said it as originally.
I think they'd be disappointed that we have gotten to the place where we have to have so many situations where we need to investigate stuff and just like make sure that everything is going as it is. But also, I don't know if they'd be disapproving because they set up the Constitution and all this stuff to evolve, to be able to use the means necessary to find the best solution. And that's what they wanted Congress to do when they're making legislation.
So should Congress look over the executive's shoulder to figure out what the executive is doing right and wrong? Or should we let the executive figure out what it's doing right and wrong?
Oh, I believe that Congress should be looking over the executive's shoulder because I don't know what your political views are, but me personally, to me, the Trump administration was very corrupt. I would compare it to the Nixon administration even, because pretty much I don't agree with Trump's views. And I believe that maybe if Congress kind of looked over his shoulder a little more, and maybe if we had impeached and prosecuted him a little sooner, got him out of office, then we maybe wouldn't have had the Capitol Hill incident. Because I feel as if in some cases, and it's not just Trump's case, it's a lot of other presidents' cases, Nixon, many others, where they really overstepped it. They really caused a commotion, and maybe we could have prevented a lot of things in history from happening if Congress had used that power a little more.
Yeah, I agree. I think Congress should look over the shoulder of the executive, because the executive is just one person. And I think with Congress, you have multiple minds going into this, just watching over him.
Very good. Your time has expired. So thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to have the conversation. I just wanted to comment on the one comment that someone made, that Congress should mind its own business. If you're looking for unanimity from every president ever elected to the office, they would agree with that. They all think that Congress is overstepping their boundaries. Now, Congress may have a different view, hence the whole concept of separation of powers. I enjoyed your statement, and your emphasis on Congress, I thought, was well placed. And thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation. Professor Chambers.
Yeah, I thought the opening was good. I thought it was real interesting to jump off of the 9/11 Commission and the Warren Commission, because it was an interesting spot to then think about in Q&A, the differences between Congress doing its own oversight through its committees versus Congress essentially creating a group to do its oversight or its investigation for it. And I think that that's actually an important distinction, because, of course, the Warren Commission is called the Warren Commission because Chief Justice Earl Warren was the one who actually ran it. So it really wasn't a congressional deal as much as it was Congress just saying, we'd like to hear about this. So that raises kind of an interesting question as to whether they were legislating or whether they were doing something else. So I thought you all raised an interesting question on that one. The Q&A was good stuff, and a lot of good, interesting interaction there. So I appreciate the conversation, and we'll see what happens going from here.
I echo what my colleagues have said. I also appreciated this conversation. I thought your opening statement was pretty good. I was interested to sort of hear you talk about Congress as being mostly effective in terms of its investigation and oversight, which I find an interesting perspective. So anyway, I enjoyed the conversation. I hope that I wish you all luck going forward, and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
And with that,